Hey, what's up, everybody? So, this is a segment where I don't play any games and we just talk about medical stuff. So, if the chat is active and has lots of questions and stuff, I usually just kind of let the chat run how things go by bouncing back and forth, answering questions. If chat's not very active, then I will sometimes sort of go into a topic and try to get some conversation going or at least teach people some things. So, sorry, I just ate a snack. So, how is everybody? Anybody have any questions that they would want to ask WebMD but can ask me since I'm right here? Asking me is much better because WebMD will just scare you and then you have no one to follow up with you on what it really means for you, what you really should do about it. And I can't give like personalized medical advice in this setting, but I can give very good generic advice on most things and at least give you a starting place for like what you should be asking your own doctor and little tips and stuff like that. So what's up, TK? How are you? I'm just finishing a Snickers bar. Hey, what's up, lady? You heard someone mention they had Alice in Wonderland syndrome? Let me look that up. I'm not quite sure what that means. Oh, I have heard of this. Where people have very like disturbed like perceptions of various body part sizes, etc. Interesting. Here, I'll pull this up on the browser. Alice in Wonderland syndrome. I think maybe it's potentially related to migraines that are showing up in abnormal ways. Weird. So you know someone, lady, that has Alice in Wonderland syndrome? What advice do I have on insomnia? Oh man, a lot of advice. So I personally have struggled with insomnia myself, pretty much my entire adult life. And then I also have a lot of experience treating people who have insomnia. And I would not consider myself a sleep expert, but I know probably a lot more than the average general doctor does, but less than a sleep specialist. So, like, we could go a bunch of different directions for insomnia because there's different causes, different types. So I guess it'd be easier to start with are you experiencing insomnia? Is that why you're asking? You don't have to say if you don't want to, but are you having trouble falling asleep? Are you having trouble waking up over and over again? Are you just not getting enough hours? You wake up too early? Do you go for days straight without sleeping, or is this more of a acute thing where just the last couple nights, or is this every night? More of a workplace acquaintance. They were talking about random shit and they mentioned it briefly. Interesting. Yeah. So from what I'm reading here, it sounds like that's a slang term for visual migraines, basically. So it's all the visual distortions that can happen during a visual, like an ocular migraine. And someone named it Alice in Wonderland syndrome, which I think is pretty funny. Because there's all kinds of symptoms. Body parts of things may look bigger, smaller, closer. Straight lines may look wavy. Things that are still may seem to move. Three-dimensional objects may look flat. Things may have color tilted on the side. Faces may look distorted. Colors may look extra bright. Things may look stretched out. I mean, um, yeah, and then the fact that it responds to migraine medication would make it sort of fit that it's a visual migraine issue. But looks like it can happen in seizures and interesting. Honestly, I cannot fall asleep, but when I sleep, I barely want to get up. I just want to keep sleeping. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, TK. That is not something I'd wish on my worst enemy, honestly. Insomnia is a really, really frustrating issue to deal with personally. Um, so if you're having trouble falling asleep, your best advice is going to be a couple of things. One is no matter how tired you are, no matter how much you want to sleep in, no matter how much now I do not always practice what I preach. I'm just going to say that. No matter how much you want to sleep in, no matter how much you're struggling to get out of bed, you got to get out of bed at the same time every day. Every day you got to get up at the same time. And what that will do is eventually you'll reach a point where you're finally getting on that 24-hour rhythm, and you're going to be tired at the time that you need to go to sleep. But that doesn't always work just by itself. Like, you have to do a bunch of other things also to try to work with that. But that's the first thing you should be doing, is decide, when do I need to get up every day for the best time for my day, for my function, for my schedule, whatever it is, and then set that time every day, no matter what. So let's say you got zero sleep the night before. You cannot nap. If you nap, you already screwed yourself up. So don't nap. Stay up until the time you want to be going to bed. So get up at the same time, go to bed at the same time every day, like clockwork. And then the other things you can be doing to help maximize the effect of having a set routine is, first thing in the morning, get some sunlight if you can. And if it's dark, then get some light in your house somewhere. Turn the lights on, brighten up your room, get some light into your eyes. That actually sends a signal to your brain. Hey, it's wake up time. It's the beginning of our day. It's circadian rhythm starting over the day. Second thing is, try to get some exercise in the first half of your day. So any kind of exercise where you get your heart rate up, get a little bit of cardiovascular exercise somehow in the first half of your day, even just 20-30 minutes is enough to kind of check that box. And then the other thing is, at the end of the day, have some sort of a routine. So that you got up at the same time, just like you were supposed to. You did some exercise in the first half of your day, just like you're supposed to. Now your bedtime's coming up. Make sure that you have a routine. Get your brain into a routine of knowing, like, it's bedtime now. So dim the lights at this time. Make the house quiet at this time. Stop screen time at this time. Like, usually you want to start doing that stuff at least an hour or two before you want to go to sleep. And then have a routine that you do. It can be anything. Just don't do things that amp you up. So listen to some music, take a bath, read a book, whatever it is, it's like, hey, it's time for getting sleep time. And those things will actually start triggering your brain. Your brain's going to notice like lights are down. That's going to release melatonin. You start having psychological priming, like, oh, all these activities we always do before we go to sleep, we're doing them now. So it's sleep time. And it's at the same time every single day, like clockwork. So that's how you give yourself your brain the best chance to start falling asleep naturally. And that also means you need to avoid things that disrupt your sleep, like caffeine is a huge one. So if you're going to drink caffeine, you need to drink it in the first half of the day only. Some people take a really long time to metabolize. I'm going to take this Alice in Wonderland off the screen. To metabolize and caffeine, so it lasts a lot longer in some people than it does in others. And so those are called long metabolizers. So there's people, they can drink coffee, gives them a nice buzz, nice boost. They're more productive, they're more awake, and it lasts for 3 or 4 hours, and then it goes away. And sometimes people even crash a little bit after the caffeine's gone. But there's some people where it takes hours and hours and hours for the caffeine to get metabolized out of your body. And, you know, I'm sure we've all met that person who's like, oh, I can't have coffee after 1 o'clock. I'll never sleep. And you're like, what the hell are you talking about? Don't you go to bed at like 10 or 11 at night? Oh, trust me. If I drink any coffee after 1 o'clock, I'm done. And that's because they're a long metabolizer. So you need to know that about yourself, know when to stop drinking caffeine. Another mistake people make is at bedtime, they think that drinking alcohol is helpful. And it is in a very small area, and that is it helps people fall asleep. It reduces your what's called your sleep latency. So sleep latency is the amount of time it takes you to fall asleep from the second that you start trying. And it will reduce that time actually quite effectively for some people. But the problem with alcohol is it disrupts your brain waves while you're sleeping. So it makes your sleep way less efficient. And so you don't get as much deep sleep. You wake up more frequently during your sleep. And so it takes more hours of sleep after drinking alcohol to get the same amount of restoration and refreshment from sleep. And a lot of people rely on it. You know, they think, oh, well, you know, I'm not sleeping well. I'll have a couple beers before bed, have a couple shots, helps me fall asleep. And it just exacerbates your problem because you're actually getting worse quality sleep than you normally would. So those are like natural things to do. My personal recommendation would be get up at the same time, do your exercise within the first like 5 or 6 hours of your day. If you can. I know that's not possible for a lot of people's schedule, but if you can, get it in. Don't drink any caffeine after you've been awake for more than 6 hours. And then if you want to have something in your routine at bedtime that actually has been proven to help relax people and help them sleep, do meditation, mindfulness meditation, like an hour before you go to bed. Then, you know, there's medications or supplements or stuff you can take. But I try to focus on things people can do with their lifestyle measures. And then if you need sleeping pills, like you need to be seeing your doctor and talking about that. Because sleeping pills are effective, but they have all kinds of pros and cons, and there's reasons to not recommend them to people. And if you want to try something that's relatively safe over the counter, you might ask your doctor, you know, or your parents or whatever, if they know if it's safe for you to take melatonin. That's a natural chemical that your brain releases to help you fall asleep anyways. And so it's actually a pretty safe way to try a supplement over the counter, you know. And they have stuff like Benadryl, ZzzQuil, etc., which is just diphenhydramine. It's an antihistamine, very similar to like the allergy medications that people take, except it crosses the blood-brain barrier and makes you a little bit sedated and helps you fall asleep. And so it gets used as a sleeping pill a lot. ZzzQuil, Unisom, all that. But I can't formally make recommendations that for people. They have to make sure it's safe for your own medical condition. But those are kind of last resorts. Yeah, I tried sleeping early, like 10 or 9. I just end up waking up like 1 a.m. and then I can't. Oh, so you can't go back to sleep. Okay. So you are able to fall asleep at 10 or 9. So then here's a super important question that helps to know if this is actually a problem for you or not. If you go to bed at 9 and you wake up at 1, that's 4 hours of sleep, right? So for the average person, that's not even close to enough. The average person needs like 7 or 8 hours of sleep as an adult. You're only getting 4 in that instance. The question is, when you only get 4 hours of sleep, do you feel refreshed? Do you feel like you got enough sleep? Like, do you sleep 4 hours and wake up and then you're just like, all right, I'm good. Got my 4 hours. I'm feeling good. It's not very common, but there are people who that's all they need. They're extremely lucky and rare, but there are people that function that way. Now, if you're only getting 4 hours of sleep and then you're like, God, I'm tired all day because I didn't get enough sleep last night, then you're not, clearly you need more. I mean, I know that sounds really obvious, but the average person thinks they have to get their 8 hours in or they're doing something wrong. And that's not always true for everybody. So there is an individualized need for sleep. You feel refreshed with only a couple hours of sleep. So if you only got 4 hours of sleep every night for the rest of your life, do you think you would feel okay? Because it is possible that maybe that's all you need. I doubt it, just based off of how rare that is, but it is possible. So then the other question is, if you sleep for 4 hours and you feel refreshed, do you ever have days where you crash and you like suddenly need like 12 hours of sleep to like catch up? Because if that's the case, then that's another sign that you need more than 4 hours a night, because sleep deprivation does accumulate over time and people eventually do crash and need what's called restorative sleep. Or recovery sleep. Anybody else struggle with insomnia? Is this helpful? It's a very commonly asked topic in here. I think a lot of people struggle with it. Have you guys ever heard the term sleep hygiene? You said no. Sorry, I probably asked too many questions. What's no, like you never have days where you need to make up for sleep? Since your car accident, they gave you take Ambien, Miss VQ? So here's some of the stuff we were already talking about. This is from sleepassociation.org. These are very common sleep hygiene tips that I just gave everybody. They sound so simple, yet they're very hard to do. You have to be disciplined every day. So you take Ambien for sleep, Miss VQ? Yeah, I mean, sometimes people do need help. They need prescription medication to help them sleep, and that's unfortunately not uncommon. I think that the way that our society functions is a very stressful way to live for a lot of people. And, people have their own stresses and anxieties, and it's hard to... Now, there's other reasons you may not be able to sleep. Things like depression, anxiety, panic, restless leg syndrome, all kinds of stuff that makes people have trouble sleeping. So sometimes insomnia can be a symptom of something else, like depression, for example. That's a very common overlap. People will be depressed and not realize it. They just think they're having trouble sleeping. When I sleep, all I get are nightmares. So then, no matter how much I sleep, I don't feel refreshed at all. That is a hard one. That is a really tough one to treat, lady. That's hard to do without. You can do all this stuff you're supposed to for sleep hygiene, but it's hard to control what happens in your dreams if you have nightmares. There is a medication that we prescribe people who have PTSD that helps with nightmares. If that's really your major problem, you might want to ask your doctor about it. It's called Prazosin. So sometimes it's used off-label just for people who have really bad nightmares but don't necessarily have the formal diagnosis of PTSD. So, and it's effective. So it's something you may want to consider asking your doctor if you haven't asked them about it. Some primary care doctors are not aware of that medication and treatment. But I'm sorry you're having nightmares. That's actually something I struggle with myself, and there's really not a lot you can do about it sometimes. But doing everything you can to calm yourself and calm your brain before you go to sleep is probably your best bet. So doing things like getting really pissed off at DBD because you're getting toxic treatment is probably not a good thing. I think that's what a lot of us do is we play games late into the night. It's a good way to distract our brains from like the shit that's happening in our IRLs. And but as a secondary effect, it also, if you're doing it too close to bedtime, it's stimulating your brain in ways that keep you awake. The blue light from any screen has been proven. It's the blue spectrum in general that wakes up your brain. And so there are night modes on like new phones and tablets and stuff, and new monitors, where it cuts a lot of the blue light out. But you can do that yourself on a computer monitor. You can filter the light on a computer monitor with using programs so that it's mostly like blue. Most of the blue light is filtered out. So everything looks kind of reddish, but it helps you to not be woken up as much from the light. Take A says, in school, I would sleep at 3 a.m. and wake up at 6 a.m. And I got used to it, but now I just stay awake all night and sleep during the day, and I'm used to it now. So when you say that you sleep during the day, like what are the hours, like how many hours are you sleeping? Because if you're still only needing a few hours a night, I mean, that just might be how you function. Have you talked to your doctor about it? Yeah, let's look up Prazosin nightmares. Let's see what this study shows. Oh, they looked at multiple random controls. This is a meta-analysis. That means they looked at all the studies available at this time. Well, not all, but a bunch of them. Small but positive evidence support the efficacy of Prazosin therapy for nightmares. So something to consider, lady, asking your doctor about. If that's your major problem is you go to sleep but you have nightmares, you might ask them about that. But yeah, TK, the big thing with sleep hours is, are you feeling refreshed? So in studies, when they study people's need for sleep, the biggest variables they look for are what they call daytime sleepiness and how long it takes you to fall asleep every day. And so people who are not getting enough sleep will get sleepier and sleepier every day. So they measure that by doing all kinds of tests, concentration, memory, mood, etc., driving simulations, whatever. And then they when you try to go to sleep, they see how long it takes. And if you're falling asleep quicker and quicker each night and feeling sleepier and sleepier every day, I know it sounds really obvious, but you're not getting enough sleep. So if you're getting 8 hours, but like everyone thinks that's the magic number, but if you're getting 8 hours and you're still sleepy every day, you're falling asleep faster and faster until you're like narcoleptic after a couple of weeks. 8 hours may not be enough for you, or like the quality of your sleep is poor somehow. You've never talked to a doctor about it? I mean, it might be something to at least talk to a doctor who will have your full medical history and can really make sure that you're okay with only getting 3 or 4 hours. Because like I said, it's very possible. There are a lot of people that only get a few hours a night. It's rare, but there's enough of them where it's known. It's a known-ish entity called short sleep. They're called short sleepers. Yeah, estimated is about 1% of people in the world actually only need less than 1 or 6 hours of sleep a night. Here's an interesting article where it talks about like how 8 hours is actually too much to sleep for some people. That's an interesting article if anyone's interested about short sleepers. You rarely ever dream. Yeah, that's not uncommon. A lot of people don't dream much. In fact, dreaming is done more in shallow sleep rather than deep sleep. A lot of people aren't aware of that. They think that if they're dreaming, they're in deep sleep. Well, maybe you don't need that much, TK. I don't know. I don't want to tell you that like, and so you confirm that you only need 3 hours of sleep. That'd be irresponsible of me because I don't know all your medical information. But it's very possible, and it's something I would bring up with your doctor for sure. Like, ask them, hey, I only get 3 hours of sleep. I feel great. Blah 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 blah, and they can ask some more detailed questions, go over your medical history, and make sure that everything's cool. And you may be one of those rare 1% people that only needs a few hours of sleep a night. Lucky you. It means that you are going to be a more productive member of society. So a lot of people who are super successful, productive people are short sleepers. And that's how they were able to get ahead, is they only need 4 hours a night. And they use that time to be productive while everyone else is sleeping. There have been presidents who are short sleepers. Lots of CEOs are short sleepers. They have a humongous advantage over the average person in attaining positions of power and success because they are awake for multiple hours a day more than the average person, and they use that time. Yeah, so short sleepers it's pretty interesting. Any other questions about sleep, insomnia? Thanks for the Alice in Wonderland syndrome thing too, lady. That was interesting. I'd never heard it called that before. I've heard of the phenomenon where people can have those sort of visual hallucinations when they have ocular migraines. But I didn't realize it was called Alice in Wonderland syndrome. That's actually kind of funny. If you are interested in weird neurologic disorders like that, there's a really good book. that I recommend. It's called The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. Now, the author of this book is now deceased. It's an old book, but he's a fantastic writer, and he was a neurologist that saw like all the weird stuff like you just talked about. Like if somebody had Alice in Wonderland syndrome, all of his colleagues would like send them to him, and then he wrote books about it, about all these weird neurologic brain disorders that he encountered. And my favorite one was Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. What a great book title. So anyway, just a little book recommendation for anyone out there who's interested in some of those weird brain diseases. It's an entertaining way to read about it. Sure, Miss VQ, fire away. Fire away. What's your question? Sure, yeah, what do you got? I'll tell you if I can answer them or not. I'll do my best. Take Hey, what do you think about teenagers smoking marijuana? Is it bad or good? Very good question. Excellent question. I'm going to wait for Miss VQ to ask her question, and then we'll get to that. That's a good, I was going to talk about marijuana as a backup topic tonight, because it's a very controversial subject. It's illegal by the federal government, but it's legalized by states. There's potentially medicinal use, etc. And I think that's a really good question. That's like the question for this platform, where a lot of people are teenagers who, play video games and watch Twitch. And so, we are moving towards legalizing marijuana in a lot of places and using it for medicinal treatment. Is it safe to use on teenagers? But I'm going to see what Miss VQ wants to ask first. And then we'll get to your question, okay? Okay, let's read her question. A friend of mine that I met almost 2 years ago, I noticed that he would cough, and I just assumed that he was sick. I'm assuming when you say that you thought they were sick, that you mean sick like they had a cold or, the sniffles like people get. But it never went away, and all the time that I've known him. He described it to me the other day as in when you choke on food or water, and then the continued cough that happens after just never stopped. What could be his cause for that? Okay, so he has a chronic cough. So this has been going on for 2 years, and it's a daily cough every day. Okay, so he has a chronic daily cough. There are a few things that account for about 99% of all chronic daily cough. So chronic daily cough can be broken down into these things 99% of the time. So post-nasal drip, allergies basically, asthma, cough variant asthma, GERD, so heartburn basically, and medication side effects. So those are your main things that you're going to look for when you're a medical doctor and you're looking at chronic daily cough, especially in a young person. So the other one that's not on that list, and this would be for someone who smokes, would be smoker's lung basically. So if a smoker, COPD. So that's basically chronic smoker's lung. Okay, so if he's not a smoker, that eliminates COPD basically. Because if you're talking to a 70 or 80-year-old who's been smoking for 40 years and they have a daily cough, it is almost a 100% chance that it's from their smoking. So if you're not a smoker, then it's like a 99% chance that it's one of the 4 things on that list above. So either he's got allergies and he's got inflammatory fluid coming from here dripping down the back of his throat and tickling his throat. Some of it may even slightly go down into the vocal cord area, trachea, and cause a cough. That's the most common. The next 2 are both fairly similar in commonness. So as cough variant asthma, a lot of times people won't have their asthma diagnosed properly if they mostly just have cough variant asthma, which is where your airways are affected, but in such a mild way that really your only symptom is you cough sometimes, and you don't get that like airway tightening that everyone associates with asthma as a kind of a cliche. Asthma attack is, your airways tighten up and you go to the hospital. It doesn't always have to be like that. It can just cause you to cough. And then the next one is like heartburn reflux. So after you eat, your esophagus doesn't close all the way and stuff leaks back up. And sometimes it can leak back up so far it starts to drip down into your trachea, laryngoesophageal reflux. So then how do you figure out which one it is? Sometimes you can't by the history. Sometimes you just have to start picking things to try treating. But some things can tip you off, like, oh, he's always sniffling, he's got a stuffy nose. Maybe it's allergies, or it only occurs like, oh, this is a common one. They'll be fine on the weekend when they're at home, and then it's always there when they're at work. So it's like some environmental exposure at work is giving them allergies and causing a cough. Or it only happens after they eat, especially when they lay down after they eat, or especially after they eat certain types of foods like spicy foods, fatty foods, things that cause heartburn. Then maybe it's heartburn. If you've ever been diagnosed with asthma in the past, or have exercise-induced asthma or other kinds of forms of asthma that you've been diagnosed with, then maybe it's cough variant asthma. So what do you do about it? Well, go to your doctor and start treating one. Or you can even try to start self-treating if you really want to try. The problem is, like I said, that list is only about 99% of all causes of chronic daily cough. So you can have something more severe, like an actual lung disease, that a doctor would need to rule out. Generally, somebody that young, I would just say, if they were my patient, I would have them try treating something first. I'd say, okay, well, it sounds like this probably is allergies, or it sounds like this probably is heartburn. So try treating one thing at a time. That's another mistake people make. They go, oh, I could have these 3 things. I'll just take some allergy pills. I'll take some heartburn pills, and then I won't cough anymore. Well, that might work, but then you don't know which one helped. You don't know what your problem is still. So I'll usually recommend a 2-week trial of something. Like, try taking some allergy medication. Take some Zyrtec for 2 weeks every day. Take some nasal steroids and Zyrtec every day for 2 weeks. And if your cough gets better, then this is probably from allergies. Or take Prilosec once a day, every day for 2 weeks. Or if you don't want to start taking medicine for heartburn, modify your diet to lower your chance of getting heartburn. And then if you've tried those are things you can try treating over the counter. Like asthma, you can't really treat over the counter. Then go to your doctor and say, hey, look, I've had a daily cough for years. I tried treating allergies. Here's what I tried. I tried treating heartburn. Here's what I tried. Could I have asthma? Could I need stronger treatment for the other 2 things? Or could it be something more dangerous? And do I need an X-ray? Do I need a chest X-ray? Do I need to be evaluated more detailed? That's probably how I would handle it. So I hope that's helpful. Like, that list really does cover like 99% of daily chronic cough in non-smokers. But there are always fluky scenarios where people have like an inherited lung disease, or non-smoker who gets lung cancer when they're young, like, you know, super rare freaky things that, you know, you have to, they happen to somebody. That's one of the scary things about reading WebMD, is it'll tell you all those things and it doesn't really sort it out for you very well. And then you just leave thinking, well, WebMD said I could have cancer even though I don't smoke. And then you just freak out. Extremely unlikely in this case, but still possible. So like, if you've treated all the easy stuff and it's not getting better, then, you know, a doctor needs to be evaluating it further. For sure. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so TK had asked earlier about medical marijuana and like teenagers. Dr. Pepper, I finished my experiment. What was your experiment? What was your experiment? I'm curious. And TK, as for marijuana and teenagers, so right now it's pretty clear that marijuana does have some beneficial effects. And we, in my opinion, like, whether I agree with it or not, which I'll save for a different podcast, since we're having such a good conversation about other things right now, is I think marijuana is going to be more and more and more common and legalized, and eventually become like alcohol is nationwide, where if you're old enough, you can buy it and it's free. I mean, it's not free, it's legal. So is it safe for teenagers? Well, that's really hard to say because there's not very much study done on it. So if you're looking to make a really good like conclusion on something in medicine, you need really definitive evidence before you tell the public this is safe. Or you tell the public this is so unsafe, you need to avoid this. Those are really important things to know exactly what you're talking about before you tell people that level of information from an expert, because they're going to follow it. And you need good evidence. Well, to have good evidence, you need really good studies. Well, how do you study marijuana in teenagers in a controlled fashion? No one's going to allow you to set up a study to do that. Right? That's why that's like another common example of that people probably are more familiar with is we don't have any good data on whether medications are safe in pregnancy. Because who's going to like take a bunch of pregnant women and say, all right, we're going to give you this medicine we've never tried in pregnant women before. It could kill your pregnancy and destroy your baby. Ready to try it and see if it works? Like, no one's going to do that. And no one's going to give marijuana to teenagers in a controlled study when marijuana is federally illegal. So we don't have a good way of studying it. So, but we do know that, you know, brain development is extremely important in teenage years and even in your early 20s. Your brain's still developing until you're about 25. Neurodevelopment of nerve tissue in your brain is still going until you're 25. So exposure to things that affect your brain function, you have to be extremely cautious about. And that includes alcohol. You know, I used to think, oh, it's so stupid. You can send someone off to war when they're 18, but they can't have a beer because the drinking age is 21 in the United States. And now I get it. As a doctor, I get it. The reason it's older is because we're trying to protect neurodevelopment of our young members of society who are our future. And if their brains are still developing until they're 25 years old, why would we want to make it easy for them to get a substance like that? And the one thing that I have read that's scary about marijuana when used at a young age is it can potentially lower your IQ permanently. So that alone would be enough for me to just say, I don't recommend marijuana to use until you're 25. Like that, if I was just being completely safe and avoiding all risk at all from any problems with marijuana long term, it would be don't use marijuana until you're 25. Don't drink until you're 25. Good luck telling that to a bunch of young college students and high school students who want to have a nice party and drink and smoke weed. Like, no one's going to listen to you. But if we're talking about safety, that would be my safety. That would be my safety advice. Don't take anything that affects your brain like that until you're 25, because it affects your neurodevelopment and can lower your IQ. Well, at least marijuana can lower your IQ long term. Only if you smoke, not smoke, but use marijuana before your mid-20s. It can permanently alter your IQ. If people like teenagers in games with squeaky voice. Wait, was that your social experiment? Was if people like teenagers in games with a squeaky voice? How did you do this experiment? My medical question is, in the morning, I always have a weird stomach ache. When I eat, I always throw up. You always throw up every time you eat? So if you're really throwing up every time you eat, you should be losing weight and be malnourished, and you would see that very quickly and be in trouble. So are you still keeping a stable weight and or gaining weight? Because if you are, then you're getting food down, you're absorbing food. Like, that's red flag signs that I'd be looking for. If someone's saying I have a problem with stomach ache and I vomit when I eat, is okay, but your weight's, hey, you gained 5 pounds the last couple months. You got to be eating something and keeping it down. But there's lots of reasons people might have stomach ache in the morning, or so red flags would be you're not getting nutrition. Then you truly have you truly have a problem. You're not getting food down. So your weight's not going to lie there. I'm 16 and last year I smoked it every day and made me more productive, but I stopped this year because my parents didn't want me to do it. Fair enough. And you know what? That's a really hard discussion to have with somebody who's 16 and feeling good while they use it. Because the thing is you may be more productive when you smoke marijuana. There are brain effects that some people really benefit from, and they feel more creative, they feel more productive, they feel like they can think more sharply. Maybe they even perform better on certain things that even if you measure it, they really do perform better. But that you may be doing that at the risk of really harming your brain during neurodevelopment long term. And if I were your parent, that would be my worry. Hey, I know you feel good when you use this stuff and you feel like it's not harming anyone, and maybe it's not, but we're worried that you're destroying your brain, and that when you're 25, you're going to wish we had never let you do this. So I know this isn't medical advice, but my advice would be to talk to your parents more about it and just find out what their reasons are. Ask them why they don't want you to do it. My guess is they care about you, they love you, and they're worried about it being harmful to you. So maybe you can have an open discussion with them. And my recommendation as a doctor is don't touch that stuff till you're 25 plus. If you want to keep your brain safe. Hey, Candy, how are you? Glad you could stop by. Oh, more hydrate. It's only in the morning. Okay. Well, maybe your stomach just kind of sensitive in the morning. People have symptoms all the time that aren't necessarily like the sign of anything dangerous or bad. So like you have a little stomach ache in the morning, you feel a little sick in the morning, but you're able to eat the rest of the day. You're not losing weight. You're not malnourished. You're not showing physical signs of harm from this. Chances are it's probably not a problem. I personally can't eat very much in the morning. My stomach's really small. If I eat anything really heavy, um, it doesn't feel good. But there's other things that can be problems like anxiety. Like a lot of people have anxiety in the morning. They wake up, their day's ready. They got all this shit they got to do today. And they're feeling a little anxious, a little stressed, and they have what's called irritable bowel syndrome, and their stomach gets upset from stress and anxiety. Those are possibilities too. Feels like I'm being stabbed in the morning when I eat. Well, that sounds different than just, oh, I have a little anxiety in the morning. Have you talked to your parents about it? Have you told your parents that you have this problem? Asked to see a doctor about it? Whenever someone says I'm feeling like I'm being stabbed in the stomach, like that's already starting to get out of like what I can address on this format online. Like that's a concerning symptom that I would, even if you go to the doctor and the doctor does an exam and checks on you and asks some questions and then says, oh, you're fine, at least you have that reassurance. Like, to me, that kind of reassurance is priceless and very worth going to the doctor for that reason. So you can leave saying, okay, phew, nothing really bad is wrong with me. I just have anxiety or I have reflux or whatever it is. Your parents think it's like crack? What do you mean by that? I'm assuming you're comparing it to like a hard illegal drug that's known there's no debate that all it does is cause severe harm and has no benefits. They say that weed will kill you. Interesting. What do they mean by that? What do they mean by kill you? I mean, it does a lot of things to disrupt people's lives especially if you're using it every single day. But I've never seen any evidence that weed will straight up kill you. It's not in the same category as something like cocaine, or like cocaine can cause a heart attack and kill you. Cocaine can cause acute psychosis and people kill themselves. Like, marijuana doesn't have those types of things associated with it, but it has more insidious long-term things that can occur. As in a couple of years, I'll get addicted and die. I've never seen marijuana addiction kill anybody. I have seen marijuana addiction ruin someone's life. You can get addicted to it. You can get addicted. So, for those of you who don't know me that well, I'm pretty open about this in my stream. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm sober almost 2 years in about a month, like 5 weeks, 6 weeks. I was addicted to alcohol. So I know what it's like to be an addict. I've been through rehab, and I actually had a roommate in rehab that was addicted to marijuana, and it was ruining their life. So it wasn't physically killing them, but it ruined their function every day. Their brain was foggy. They had no motivation. They lost, multiple jobs. They lost their girlfriend. They lost everything. Even their parents were ready to kick them out of the house. They would do anything they could to get more marijuana. And it's not as common as people getting, that kind of addiction to something like meth or heroin or alcohol, but it is common enough where it's well known. It's a well-known phenomenon. So you can get addicted to it. It's possible. I think your parents are just probably a little bit overly worried because they love you. They don't want to see anything bad happen to you. And it is illegal federally, like, even though it's legal in a lot of states, it's federally illegal to possess marijuana and to use marijuana. And I mean, if it was my kid, I'd be like, stay away from that crap while you're in my house. I slammed my arm into the door this morning. It fucking hurts. Oh, that sounds painful. I'm sorry, Dr. Pepper. I got caught in school because I smelled like it. Yeah, it has extremely strong odor. Anybody who knows what it smells like can smell it on you, probably. I had a lot of weed on me, but it's not because the weed in my bag smells because I smoked before. Yeah, of course. Yeah, if you're using it, you're going to smell like it. That stuff, it just permeates your clothes and your hair and your skin. And yeah, I've had some patients who they are addicted, and I can smell them coming down the hall. Had a year probation for having that much marijuana on you. Yeah, I mean, that's reason enough to not risk it. You know, that's one of the ways it can ruin your life is legally too, not just physically. And it doesn't matter if you feel like if you didn't do anything to hurt anyone, or maybe it helps you function better certain ways. Like, it's illegal. If it's illegal where you live, you're taking a huge risk. I think your parents are just trying to protect you. You fell down the stairs? Dr. Pepper, what's going on here? You pulling my chain? Did you really fall down the stairs? You went to a therapist, to groups every Saturday. It was boring for you? Well, I mean, not everybody gets stuff out of therapy. The other thing that I always tell people about therapy is you're only going to get as much out of therapy as you put into it. So if you don't want to go to therapy, you're completely against going to therapy for any reason at all, and someone forces you to go to therapy, you're probably not going to get much out of it. There's really not much benefit in forcing people to go to therapy. So it may be that you weren't ready to go to therapy. Your mind wasn't there. But if you go to therapy and you're like, I'm going to get as much out of this as I can, most people will come out of it with something. But like we're formally trained on how to help people quit smoking. And one of the first things they teach us is if your patient says that I'm not ready to quit smoking, that's the end of the conversation. That's literally the end of the conversation. There's nothing more to talk about. If someone's not ready to work on something like that, nothing that you say or do or make them do or try to force them to do is going to be effective. And, you're young. You're young. Sometimes young people have to make their own mistakes. Lord knows I've made tons of my own mistakes in my life. And one of the reasons that I'm, wise and balanced now at my age, I'm 38 years old, is because I've made a lot of mistakes and I've had to learn from them. My parents tried to save me from them before I made them. And, young people are stubborn and going to do what they do. Weed is fairly cheap. Yeah, it is pretty affordable in most places. It's a very accessible drug. Most drugs are pretty expensive for the average person, but weed is getting cheaper. There's a huge supply of it now, especially now that it's legal in so many states. But yeah, I was going to do a talk on marijuana tonight, but I didn't feel quite prepared. I want to make sure it's a really high quality talk. But it's a tough issue because there is a lot of good evidence that it has medicinal use and it can be very beneficial for a lot of people in certain ways, and that it's relatively safe. But in use in teenagers, that's a tough one. I always am going to have to err on the side of caution and say there's not enough data. It is, it inhibits brain function. Your neurodevelopment doesn't stop till you're 25 years old. There's evidence that it could even decrease your IQ long term. I would avoid it altogether. But marijuana is not alone in having side effects and detrimental effects, while also having medicinal use. Every medication that anyone has ever taken in the history of man has potential side effects. You find me a medication that works, that doesn't have potential side effects, I'll give you $1 billion. The world would give you $1 billion. As a doctor, it's the bane of my existence is medication side effects. Because I know I've got all these patients and they're all on medicines. Some of them are going to get side effects from them, and some of those side effects can be pretty major. They can even sometimes be worse than the original problem. So marijuana is not alone in that sense. Basically, any substance that you take to try to help yourself, there's going to be a risk of having side effects, period. What about acid? Acid is a Schedule 1 controlled narcotic by the DEA. It is not legal anywhere. It will never be legal anywhere. There's no positive medicinal use for acid. It only has potential negative effects. It is illegal and will remain illegal for eternity, in my opinion. It's dangerous. Yeah, it's dangerous. Can you potentially have fun taking it? I mean, that's subjective. If you like hallucinations. But if you like being altered, it's a huge risk. It's dangerous and illegal, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. And you're talking to somebody who does see that marijuana has benefits, even though it's illegal. Like, I would be willing to make arguments that maybe it should not be federally illegal for various reasons. So I'm not one of those like by the book, drugs are bad, doctors or adults. But acid, there's no question. Wouldn't touch it. Oh, my nightlight just went off. Hold on a sec. Shrooms? I mean, so here's the question. Like, what are you trying to get out of these substances, right? Are you just trying to have a good time? Like, people have fun with shrooms because they like being altered and having hallucinations, etc. But at what risk, I've seen people hurt themselves badly on shrooms because they're so messed up and altered. So, any of those mind-altering substances, like, you're just playing with fire. You might end up having a little fun, but there's a reason that they're considered dangerous substances. Some people microdose every day. Hey, if they want to try it. The thing is like, my job as a physician is, if I'm making a recommendation on safety on something, I need to have concrete, good data. And there's no data out there like that for things like acid and shrooms. There's anecdotal reports. Oh, I know someone who microdosed every day, and they said it felt great and they didn't have any problems. Well, maybe that's true for them, but when you start making recommendations for, billions of people around the world, you have to be sure that the risks are understood across large groups of people. Because there might be that one person who, it doesn't really affect them. But it might affect a bunch of other people badly and, cause horrible effects. So I would say I agree with every illegal substance on the DEA Schedule 1 list for being illegal, except I could argue against marijuana. Potentially. But yeah, stuff like acid, shrooms, you're just playing with fire. Dr. Pepper used QBD. You mean CBD oil? CBD oil? Is that what you mean? Since you've smoked marijuana, will corona be really bad if I get it? It depends on how much you smoke, how much damage there is in the short term from your smoking. You're young, so it's virtually impossible that you have like permanent damage to your lungs from smoking, but you may have short term that's going to require you to have been smoke free for a few weeks to repair. Current evidence suggests that if you have short to medium term damage to your lungs from smoking, you need to quit for a month to have significant repair of that damage. So if you're an active smoker, then yes, a lung disease like COVID could be worse for someone like you, even though you're young. You're 2 months clean? First of all, congratulations. Seriously. That's not easy to do, especially when you've been used to, having a substance like that every day. So good for you. Second of all, if you're 2 months and you haven't smoked in 2 months at your age, it's very unlikely that that's going to increase your risk for something like COVID. But if you were actively smoking, yeah, it definitely could. The first week sucked. I bet. The first week, getting off of a substance you've been used to taking every day, it sucks for almost everybody. Withdrawal symptoms are a really uncomfortable thing to go through. Couldn't eat, yeah. Yeah, well, marijuana, THC increases your appetite. It stimulates your appetite artificially. That's one of the few times I've actually prescribed THC. So there's a medicine called Marinol. That is a synthetic version. It's a man-made THC. And I prescribed it for somebody who had cancer and couldn't eat on their chemo. They had no appetite. So we gave them Marinol, and it actually helped. We were desperate. They were really starting to become malnourished, not eating. So, yeah, you've got something that's been stimulating your appetite artificially every day for a really long time, for a year, you said, and then all of a sudden it's gone. So yeah, that's not uncommon for stuff like that to happen. But hey, you're 2 months clean. That's awesome. You deserve some props for that. Seriously. Do your parents know that you're 2 months clean? Are you open with them about it? They know. Good. That's good. So it sounds like you maybe have a pretty good open relationship with your parents. That's fantastic. Bubonic plague is back, I heard. Well, it's never been gone. Yersinia pestis has always still been there. So if you want to look it up, the bacteria that causes the plague is called Yersinia pestis. And there's always like case reports of the plague occurring, even in the United States. It's just super rare now. Usually it's rural areas. It's carried by rodents and in fact, I'm curious what's the last case in the United States? Oh, I see. I see. There was a bubonic plague case in China. Yeah. So Yersinia pestis is so we don't have the plague isn't spreading around the world because of hygiene. We have so much better hygiene, clean water, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's not. It's never going to be an epidemic again, or a pandemic like it was before. But the plague is out there. I mean, that bacteria is out there. So, but unless you're like, bit by I don't know who carries it. Who are the big vectors for Yersinia pestis? Yeah, small mammals, and then the fleas that bite those mammals. So yeah, bubonic plague's been around. So when you see stories in the news that are like, "Oh my God, the plague is back," and they like report one isolated case in like rural China, they're just clickbaiting you. The plague has never been completely gone. It's never going to be. That bacteria is still around, um, and it infects small rodents and mammals, and um, that's it. It's almost never like unless you get bit by one of them, or you're playing with squirrels and whatever else. I'm trying to find the animals that usually transmit it. Rodents. It's usually rodents. And you need to be contaminated with fluid or tissue from those rodents. The rodents usually die fairly quickly, and so they can't really spread it. Anyway, so yeah, bubonic plague has been around. You're just seeing clickbait in the news. It's probably some isolated case. Like the one I just saw was 2 days ago. There's an isolated case in China, and then everyone home's like, "Oh my God, the plague is gonna take over the world like coronavirus," because that's what the news wants you to think, so that you'll click on their article. When is the quarantine going to be over? Now that is a heavy question. I have no idea. In my opinion, it shouldn't be lifted at all right now. Like we should all be sitting at home, like we're doing. They shouldn't have reopened anything. And if you look at the cases, so let's look at the graph for COVID. Okay. It's actually really scary. Really, really scary. Where is the data for the latest cases? Cases by day. Okay, let's pull this up here. So this is directly from the CDC. Okay. This is the first reported case in the United States, March 12th. Or no, wait. Looks like it's back here. February 27th. February 27th. So, oh, hey. Thank you, Spooky Loops. Oh, well, let's give a shout out to Spooky. Spooky is my favorite Dead by Daylight streamer, guys. He's fucking awesome. He's really, really entertaining. He's been working really hard at his stream for a year, and it's very fun. I really like. I'll watch it after my stream's over because he usually streams like slightly later hours than I do. Welcome, Spooky. We're just chatting about the COVID quarantine right now. TK asked, hey, when's the quarantine going to be over? And so I just pulled up the CDC website. So if you look at back here in late February, these were the first cases reported. And then it finally started spreading around in March. And it peaked in like early April. And then that's when we finally said, hey, we got to do something about this. And we did. So everyone's staying at home. Everything's closed. You know, like only like mandatory services are kept open, which apparently included a GameStop. GameStop wanted to say that they were a necessary service. I don't know if you guys saw that, but this was one of the reasons why, like, I feel like the United States has failed at controlling COVID is shit like this. That's real. They tried to claim they were essential retail so they could stay open during the initial phase 1 COVID stuff. So then you can see the cases like are slowly starting to slow down. We've at least like plateaued. Now it's starting to slow down. So now we're getting control of it. And then here's when we reopened in early June, right in here. And this is today. What the actual fuck? Okay. Like, how stupid are we as a large group of people who are making decisions together to try to take care of each other? So it was this bad when it was peaking before the initial quarantine. And then we are now at, so the worst day was 43,000 cases in one day. And that's an anomaly, like even compared to a lot of the other days around it. Like let's take the second worst day was 34,000. Then we quarantined, and then we reopened. And since we reopened, just in a few weeks, we are now up to 57,000 in a day, 52,000 in a day, 44, 46, 50, 64. Now, you can make an argument that and this is a good argument, some of the reason that we're seeing more diagnoses is we're now able to test for it better. So we're testing more. If you don't test for it, you can't diagnose it. So that's why back here, people were getting it, but we don't have any numbers for it because we weren't testing. But it's pretty clear this coincides with not the fact that we're suddenly testing more. It's that we reopened half the country, and some places reopened very quickly and what I feel is irresponsibly without any real rules. And this is what we get. 64,000 people were diagnosed with COVID yesterday in the United States. That's mind-boggling to me. And it's not only just that there were poor rules from the top, it's that people are not following the rules. So like you go out in public, like where I am at right now, it is the law. You have to wear a mask if you're out in public where I live. And then there's people all over the place not wearing masks. There's police officers not wearing masks. So people are just not following the rules. Is there a statistic of asymptomatic patients? I don't know of like an actual number, but that is also a huge problem, Spooky. That's a good question. Like, how do you control something that is not always detectable by external appearance? You know, if everybody who had it was just like, of course we would know, get that person out of here, get them quarantined. You're going to get everybody sick. But there are tons of cases now where it's clear that people can be carriers and they're not symptomatic. Another problem is the incubation period. So if you guys aren't familiar with that phrase, incubation period is the time that it takes after you're exposed. So let's say you're sharing, a room with someone who has COVID and they have COVID and you get COVID from them. You may not get actually infected and have infective problems and symptoms with it for up to a week, maybe more later. So you're walking around, you've got COVID in your body and you have no idea. There's even been case reports of up to 2 weeks. So like the range is 3 to 14 days with the average being closer to like 5-6 days, maybe a week. So yeah, it's hard to control when you don't always show symptoms right away. We'd have to be testing at an exponential rate to get that many more cases. That's correct, Pierre. So that doesn't explain this increase that we're seeing right here. That can only be explained by people being out in public and being exposed to each other. Spooky says, I had a kid at work that was asymptomatic, only got tested because his dad had it. Oh, did it come back positive? Did it end up that he has COVID? It's because TK says it's because of all the protests. You know, I think there may be something to that, to be honest. You know, we're a country of individualism. We like our individual freedom, and it is what makes America America. And individual freedom is amazing and fantastic and priceless. But there are times when sometimes that individual freedom it harms the masses, and this is one of those times. I'm curious if they were positive, because that's a very legitimate reason to get tested. Is you've been exposed to someone who's known COVID. They should be testing everybody that's then in intimate, in any kind of intimate exposure, sharing a household, coworkers, anything where you're exposed to their breathing, basically. Individual freedom is great until people get used to it. Well, I mean, I can't think of anything in my lifetime where our individual freedom has been shut down in such a mass indiscriminatory way to everybody in the country. You can't leave your house. You can't do this. You can't go to this place or that place. Your business has to shut down. You have to wear a mask in public. Like it's surreal going to the store and you can't enter the store unless you're wearing a mask, and everyone's wearing a mask. It's weird. There's arrows telling you which direction to go down the aisles. I mean, it's kind of draconian in a way. And people don't like having those kinds of rules because, like you said, yeah, we're used to our freedoms. But I mean, is it really that bad to wear a mask into the grocery store and stay 6 feet away and use the arrows to go down the aisle the right way so that people don't fucking die? Like, I mean, come on. It's not like they're taking away some massive freedoms, People just don't like being told that they can't do something. That's my opinion. My dad had COVID, but my mom, my brother, and me never got tested. And this was in the same house? Like he was positive and had symptoms and stuff when you guys were all living together? Pierre says, exactly. People freaked out. Your individual freedom is a right, but sometimes you need to sacrifice that right for other people's safety. Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you look at the statistics, this is a pretty deadly disease compared to what we're used to. It kills about 1% of everyone it infects, is the guess, which is about 10 times more deadly than the flu. And look at how we treat the flu every year. I mean, we freak out about flu season. This kills people at 10 times the rate of flu. And it kills vulnerable people, elderly people, people who are sick. It's killed a lot of older people. It's sad. We're supposed to be protecting our elders. Staying 6 feet away is the best thing to happen. I like my personal space. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. And it's a cultural thing too. Like if you go to different areas of the world, like personal bubble space is a very cultural, individual thing. There's countries where the personal bubble space is bigger than others, and there's countries where it's actually much smaller than the United States. And being close to each other is okay and normal. It's even different within areas of the United States. Like, I'd be willing to bet that the personal bubble space in super dense cities where people are used to being around each other at all times, being crammed into trains and subways and buses and, you know, crowded lines at the you know, entertainment areas, etc. The personal bubble space is accepted as being much smaller than it would be in like a smaller town. But yeah, 6 feet away, it is kind of nice. You're in the store and it's just like, you know, but at the same time, if you're social, like there's been times in the store where like, you know, I want to say hi to someone or give them a compliment. Like I'm a social person. And you can't do that with COVID. It's actually kind of isolating. I don't like it. Same house. My mom still slept with him and we were all fine. It's still been like 3 months now. Huh. Interesting. I mean, it's possible that you guys got exposed and didn't have symptoms. But if it's been 3 months, then you're kind of past everything. So, but I mean, if you were like, "Hey, my dad just got it like last week and we haven't been tested," I'd be telling you go to the doctor, get tested now. But 3 months later, you're already past. Pierre says it's getting worse, not just because of the protests, but also because Cletus is out here making posts about how stores are restricting his rights by not allowing him in without a mask. I'm assuming when you say Cletus, you're making like a derogatory comment about the average person who's not very smart. Yeah, I mean, there is that. That's what I was just kind of alluding to earlier. Is it really that big of a deal to wear a mask to the grocery store to make sure that your 80-year-old neighbor like doesn't get sick? I mean, that's a pretty small sacrifice, in my opinion. But I'm also, you know, my viewpoint as a professional is from public health standpoint. So like public health issues in general, your focus is on the masses and not the individual experience. So like when you're trying to take care of 300 million people, I think there's 330 million people in the United States now. You have to make decisions and recommendations that not everyone likes. You need to get vaccinated every year, you know? Like, for example, if you don't get your flu vaccine and you work in a hospital, you're not allowed to work unless you wear a mask and wear a sticker that says, "I'm not vaccinated." Because you're putting the patients and other coworkers at risk for getting the flu in those situations. And as a public health professional, when making those recommendations, we don't care if you feel like your individual rights are being infringed on. Our job is to take care of 330 million people and keep them from getting sick. So sometimes individual rights do get infringed upon. I mean, there's always that dynamic, right? In any large group, any country, is, you know, when you're making decisions for the masses, sometimes individual experiences, you know, they get shot down the drain. It just is what it is. And that happens in anything, any group, even smaller groups. Like at your work, they have policies, right? That horrible word, policies. Policies are designed to make things easier for everybody. But that makes it hard for some people, for some individuals. And that person's going to scream and cry and say that this rule is stupid and unfair. And I've totally been that person before. I'm not sitting here acting like I'm on a white, you know, ivory chair. Like, I've totally been that person who's like, this rule is so dumb. It's so mindless and thoughtless. And it's because not everyone individual needs can always be taken into account when you're taking care of a group. And that dynamic's always going to be there. But I think when you're trying to save old people from dying from a virus, the you know, the maximum acceptable burden of your rights being that you have to wear a mask to the store, and that's what you're complaining about, kind of yikes, kind of cringy to me. I'm getting off stream. I can't focus on my game. I'm super sorry. Oh, don't worry about it, man. I'm glad you joined us, Dr. Pepper. And I, like we talked about earlier, I played the Division 2 for quite a while. I get it, man. Go have fun. This stream is here to entertain and be educational. And if you're having fun and you're playing your game, go play your game. I'll be around. I'll be on tomorrow. I'll be on the day after that. We'll hang. And if you're in the Discord, I mean, I'm always acting with the Discord as well. Oh yeah, for anyone who's new, this is our Discord server. If you want to join us, that's where we talk after off stream, and there's announcements and stuff in there. And Dr. Pepper, I'm doing a 24-hour stream on Saturday, 10A to 10A. So go have fun. Thanks for joining us. Any other questions on COVID? I mean, this is I know this is like a worn out topic. People are probably really tired of COVID right now. But it is kind of a rare opportunity to just be able to openly ask questions to a doctor without, any biases here. I'm just here to help inform people. Or clarify things that people are concerned or confused about. I guess I never really answered that question all the way, which was, when is the quarantine going to end? My honest answer is, I honestly don't see it ending for a long time. Many months. Many, many, many months. We need a vaccine. We really need a vaccine. And one problem is the immunity to COVID has been shown to be short-lived in some people. So that there is the possibility that you can get COVID, recover, get some antibodies, and you may not be fully protected from it, from a second infection. So how well is a vaccine really going to work? I don't know. There's just a lot of unknowns, and they're not good unknowns. But we really need a vaccine. And I don't think COVID's going away for a while, for years probably, for a couple of years. When this first came out, I told my friends, I said, this is going to be the year of COVID, guys. And they're like, what are you talking about? It's just in China and blah, 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 blah. And, that's part of the problem is, people don't want to listen to experts when what they have to say is what they don't want to hear. Trust me, I want to tell you better things. I wish I could tell you exactly what you want to hear, but I'm supposed to tell you the truth and inform you. And I honestly think that COVID's not going away for at least another year. We need a vaccine ASAP. Can you confirm whether or not 5G causes COVID? I know you cap at that, but like Kappa or not, that I get asked that a lot. People ask about 5G a lot. I don't really have much to say because there's not a lot of data on it. It's just all speculation and conspiracy theory at this point. Do you think we will have school next year? Man. I don't know. I think it's a toss-up. I think it's 50-50. I really do. I think before we reopened, I think the answer would have been yes, we will. But now that we've reopened and we're seeing this, I think it's a toss-up. I think it's a toss-up. I really do. Schools have to find a workaround. I agree, Pierre. I mean, but they have to find a workaround. We can't delay education because of this. Like, we have to find a way around it. And from what I understand, the virtual stuff for teaching just doesn't work that well. I have some family members who are teachers. I've been reading about it. It's not nearly as effective as teaching in person. So, I mean, will they, there's all kinds of things I can think of they could try, but I'm not an expert on that stuff, on how education works. What could you do, like split like split time where like you do at least a couple of days in person at school and wear masks, and sure it's not as personal, but like you're getting interaction with other people, because that's part of school, is interacting with your classmates. You lose a lot of communication without being in person. You lose all kinds of stuff, body language, facial expression, all that stuff. And you can't really pick that up as well, even on video. You just can't. There's all kinds of technical problems with virtual education. But I think that they'll find a way to like split up classes so that they're not in school in physically full time, but maybe you'll have like most of your stuff virtual, and then like Friday's like your day to, your small group will go in on Friday to have some in-person interaction with the teacher and your classmates that are in that small group. And then it'll be another small group's day to go in on Thursday, et cetera, et cetera. And then the rest of the time, everything's virtual online. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of ways you could do it. And then maybe like hold the classes in the gymnasium and spread people out. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but I don't see at this point with this going on how you could ever say it's safe to have, like, take a high school, for example, in a big city, to have 2,500 high school kids all packed together in a small campus with 30 to 40 kids in the classroom. How could you ever say that that's a safe thing to do when we're telling people you can't even be 6 feet away from each other at the frickin' grocery store? I think it's gonna be a huge challenge. But yeah, things have changed a lot. So like, we were at about the same as we were a few months ago at June 20th. So it's only been 3 weeks. In the last 3 weeks, things have changed. So if you asked me that question 3 or 4 weeks ago, I would have had a completely different answer. You feel like school is pointless. You sound like a teenager. I expect teenagers to say that. That just sounds like you're a normal teenager, TK. Pierre says, I was supposed to take a trip with the boys to Savannah. It didn't happen. Yeah, a lot of people had to cancel their trips. My parents were supposed to go to Europe and do a big trip over in Europe. They had to cancel. They were right around when COVID hit, like March. So what did they do instead? They bought a puppy. So many people have bought animals during COVID so that they can have a companion at home while they're quarantined. Not school as a whole, but standardized testing. School has a point. Yeah, I mean, you have to learn basic things somewhere. And the other thing is, like, there are job requirements. Jobs require you to have your high school diploma and this and that. So at the bare minimum, you got to check those boxes for your life. But it makes my life more stressful. Of course it does. I mean, when I was in high school, I had the same attitude, TK. I mean, I can sit here as a 38-year-old doctor who clearly education has been an incredible part of my life, or I wouldn't be able to be having this conversation with you as a physician. When I was your age, I had the same view. Oh, it's so stupid. Why do we have to learn chemistry? What the heck? I'm not going to use that ever. What's the point of, why do I have to learn trigonometry? And you know what? I don't use trigonometry ever. Frickin' ever. I don't even use basic chemistry, even though that's a class you have to take to become a doctor. So is some of that stuff pointless? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, there's a lot of arguments to be made that just learning how to function in school and how to learn in general, how to study, how to get along with other people in that environment, how to take instruction. Like, there's a lot of other things that you learn by being in school than just the subject matter itself. And then, of course, there's society. Like, you have to finish high school to get most jobs. If you want to go to college and become a doctor, you have to take basic math in high school and pass. It is what it is. You're going to be a junior in high school next year. Hey, congrats. You're only 2 years away from finishing high school. And then you can figure out what you want to do with your life. So I would say do your absolute best in school so you don't limit yourself. Because the last thing you're going to want to do is be 20 years old and you can't go to college, you can't go to a vocational school. You're limited in what you can do because you said, high school's stupid. And then you're regretting it. That's my, I know that's not medical advice. I'm being a parent now. For schools of that size, I see them having to stay at certain grades at 10 on certain days of the week to make class sizes smaller and spread out. Yeah, Miss VQ, exactly. I don't know if you were AFK or not. I was kind of saying something similar earlier. Like, you may have small groups where you say, hey, Thursday is when the juniors come in, or, whatever. Friday is when the seniors come in, and the rest of the week everything's virtual, and like hold the classrooms in like large rooms where you can spread people out. Use the gym, use the cafeteria, use the auditorium, whatever you have to do to spread people out, wear masks, at least get people there in person interacting somehow. But yeah, I mean, if you asked me that question literally 1 month ago, where we were at an all-time low for daily infections and we'd been keeping things under control, and you say school is 3 months away, do you think we're going to have school? I would have said yes. But we're now 3 or 4 weeks later and we're at this. My answer is a toss-up. I think it's a toss-up. I think they'll find some middle ground. My dad can't come back from Saudi Arabia. Oh, I'm so sorry, Miss VQ. That's got to be so frustrating. That's got to be really stressful for your family. There's a streamer who came in earlier to lurk, Bafiki. And I just saw him tweet a post saying that his dad's been stuck in India for months because of this. And he's finally going to get to come home. So I think you're not alone in that problem. I'm really sorry that your family's separated because of this. Yeah. His dad's been stuck in India. I think I typed it as you were saying it. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a delay between me and the chat. We could all get tested. If we don't have it, just go to school. That might be part of the plan, TK. I could see that being a plan if there's enough testing available. That before everybody physically is allowed to go to school, that they get tested. But the problem is it's an ongoing pandemic. So let's say you get tested on the first day of school and you're clean. No COVID. Well, who's to say that 2 weeks later you're still clear? How, that, and so that's why right now we're testing based off of, have you been exposed? Have you lived with somebody who had COVID, had a positive COVID test? Do you have any of these common symptoms? We're not going to catch everybody, but there's not enough resources to just test every single person in the United States, all 330 million people, every 2 weeks to make sure they don't have COVID. It's just not possible. But I do think at least a day one testing would be a decent policy to start with at most schools. Hey, if you're going to go to school physically here, you got to get tested. We're going to make sure at least we know day one, everyone's clear. We should be able to test ourselves. That would be really nice. Yeah, but I mean, we don't live in a magic world where you can just, press a button and, I always joke with people. What I want for my birthday every year is a Star Trek. What do they call those things? I think it's called a tricorder. No, that's the one where they record device. God dang it. It's the medical thing. It is. Yeah, it is. It is the tricorder. Yeah, the Star Trek tricorder. He can like diagnose people and stuff by just pointing something at them. How awesome would that be? But unfortunately, in real life, to get tested, some insanely smart group of, PhD scientists, who have degrees in microbiology and epidemiology, they have to come up with a way to, practically look for certain chemical markers in your body about this virus that we have very poor understanding of, and then somehow make it cost efficient and do it now. Like the average medication takes years and years and years to research, develop, make cost efficient. And guess what? When it first comes out, it costs like $1,000 to buy a brand new medication, to pay for all that research and time. And so right now, the experts are being asked to do what's almost impossible. Come up with this test, this vaccine, a treatment immediately, and make it so that not only is it cost effective and cheap and affordable, but is also available instantaneously to everybody. Who's going to make it? Who's going to make those things in mass quantities? Somebody has to come up with a way to make it quickly, and then someone has to actually make it, right? So that's actually a problem already in society for something that we're very familiar with and very experienced at dealing with, and that's the flu. It is a struggle every year to get a flu vaccine made on time and in mass amounts and made well. Every year there's a problem with the flu vaccine. There's not enough. We're short in supply, or it missed one of the strains that is infecting everybody, and it doesn't even work. Whatever. Every year we have a problem with the flu vaccine, and that's something we've been dealing with and we've known about for decades. So imagine the problems that we're having trying to come up with something to test, treat, and vaccinate for something brand new and scary like COVID. I think we're asking the impossible of our experts and our scientists. So my hope is that by like the end of the year, maybe we'll have a vaccine starting to be prepared. Like that's a more realistic expectation, that we'll have enough testing to test everybody by the end of the year, etc. The problem is we've got shit like school coming up in a couple months. We need shit now. We need something now, and it's not always possible. On the bright side, this COVID thing has given me time to appreciate my roommates more, for sure. I mean, it's a weird year, right? We're all stuck at home. Thank God for Twitch. Can we get a thank God for Twitch? I mean, seriously. As a streamer and as a viewer, I am so thankful for Twitch and things like Twitch. Someone clip him saying the flu vaccine doesn't work. Hey, it's well studied. There are many years where flu vaccine doesn't work. Like a couple of years ago, there was a year where the flu vaccine had an estimated 20% success rate at protecting people. That's essentially nothing when you're looking at an epidemic. 20% is, you're not protecting anybody. There's no herd immunity there. You're done. You failed that year. But there are years where the protection rate's like 70 to 80%, and that is enough to give some herd immunity and stop spread and protect a lot of people who get the vaccine, because the vaccination rate's about 46% the last couple of years. So slightly less than half the country gets vaccinated, gets their vaccine. So if you have about, let's just say half, if half the country gets a vaccine that protects 80% of the time, that means 40% of everyone in the entire United States will not get the flu. It just won't ever get to them. Even if they're in a room full of people with the flu, they're not getting it. So that means they're not spreading it around. They're not getting sick. So it's still worth doing it every year. We'll never know until the end of the flu season whether it worked or not. That's part of the problem. But my point is that even with something as well known as the flu, we still struggle with modern technology to have, effective treatments, vaccines, and diagnoses, etc. So something brand new like COVID, it's we need to have realistic expectations for how quickly and effectively we're going to be able to deal with this. It's going to take a year or two. I really believe that. I know that scares people, but that's my belief. 2021, COVID's gone. I hope so. I hope so. By the end of 2020, I'm hoping that we're getting to a point where we have, a real vaccine, a treatment, etc. And also just better understanding it with how the virus actually functions so that we know how to stop its spread better, etc. Our rules for stopping the spread can be more efficient. I stopped getting flu shots every time I would get a flu shot. I would get the flu horribly. Once I stopped getting flu shots, I stopped getting the flu. Okay. That's a whole another discussion. I could spend a whole hour talking to you about that. So I won't go into it too much. I'll just tell you my recommendation as a physician to the general public is, unless you have some specific reason to not get the flu vaccine that you've gone over with your doctor, and there are some reasons people can't get it, everyone should get the flu vaccine every year. And it does not give you the flu. Unless you get the nasal flu vaccine, which is made for children, that has live flu in it. Different scenario. It can give you the flu. A year or two of isolation, I think I'm gonna go crazy. Yeah, well, you and everyone else. That's why we need to reach out and interact with each other, through social media, things like Twitch, things like Twitter, Discord, playing video games together. Make sure you're staying in touch with your close inner circle, over the phone, do Zoom, do Skype, like stay connected with people using technology as best you can. Because I don't think in-person mass meetings are going to happen for a long time. I don't see like sporting events happening or concerts or any of the stuff that we like to do together as human beings in big groups. I don't see that stuff happening for a long time. The Ivy League colleges just voted to cancel their fall sports seasons for every sport. And the only reason that the big colleges are still debating is because they have so much money on the line. They're not thinking about the safety of the athletes, the safety of the fans, the safety of the students. They're thinking about money. But the Ivy League schools already came out and said, no sports, period. The entire fall semester, not a single sport will be played. And I think that's just going to have a domino effect on things like concerts and, everything else that has similar kind of mass meetings. It's just, they're not going to be any for the rest of 2020. And there really shouldn't be. So we need to interact with each other online. I can tell you, I get a lot out of being on Twitch as a streamer. I love interacting with you guys. It keeps me sane while I'm quarantined. Yeah, thank God for Discord. Seriously, man. I love chatting on the Discord after I'm off stream. And I love being on stream too. If there's one thing the plague taught me is that if you get COVID, you should die, because if everyone has COVID dies, the spread will stop. It's true, man. Like if you die really fast from a disease, it's very difficult to spread it if you die too quickly, because there's not enough time to expose. It's like Ebola. Ebola is really scary because it has a high fatal rate, but it kills people so quickly that if you quarantine them, that it doesn't spread anywhere. I mean, you had the whole Ebola scare in the United States. It ended up being nothing because they quarantined people properly. And, well, I don't want to say nothing. That's not very respectful to the people that had it and died. A few people did get it and die, and that's awful. But you're right, it didn't spread because they died so quickly and they were quarantined. So I get your point. I know you're making a joke. You're capping. But yeah, I mean, thanks for bringing up COVID. I know it's a tired topic that we have, but by the way, I mean, this is not a joke. You guys should read about this. So basically what GameStop tried to say, and this is back when like it was phase 1, we didn't know what we were dealing with. Like it was like the country was shut the fuck down. Like it was shut down. Okay. And GameStop was trying to say we should still be able to remain open. Their reason was that they want one of their products that they sell is keyboard You guys still there? I think my stream went offline for a second. Are you guys? Is the stream okay? It said that I got disconnected for a second there. We're all good. Okay. Good. All right. Well, so usually I end this segment at around 11 o'clock. And it looks like we're at 11. That was great. Great stream. Great conversation. Great questions. I love doing this with you guys. They only, they're only like, I think 2 hours is a nice length for this type of segment, but I may, and you guys, what do you guys think about me doing this more often? Do you think once a week is good? Like gives something to kind of look forward to and come up with questions and time to sort of process what we talked about? Or do you think I should do it like twice a week? Because I feel like it's a great way to be myself and like get to know you guys instead of just playing games. And also to educate and, I mean, people pay really good money to go talk to doctors. Like the average hourly rate to see a doctor is like, I don't know, like 120 bucks an hour or something like that. I'm free. I'm free and I'll shoot to you straight and I'm not in a rush and like it's fun. So I really enjoy it. I do think it's worthwhile. But if you guys want me to do it more often, let me know, especially in the Discord. Like I'll do a poll in the Discord and see what people think. You think once a week is good? I think it's good too, but I have had a few people say, oh, we wish you did this more often. But then the people who say that don't even show up to the one that I did once a week. Like they're not here right now. So what to do. But yeah, I think once a week is good. For now, I'm going to keep it at Thursday nights. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Thank you to everybody who asked questions and interacted. Like this kind of a stream is not possible without you asking questions, without you being intellectually curious, and without your comments. And we had some good back and forth discussion and things we agreed on and disagreed on, and I love that kind of interaction. It's not possible if people don't interact. So thank you. You guys help make the stream. So what I want to do before I log off is I hope you guys stick around to at least just say hi to a new person and raid, is to do a quick raid of another channel. Why are doctors so afraid of apples? I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. That's a good joke. I mean, that's a good little dad joke there. I'm a dad joke fan. I mean, I think the old saying is based off of apples being healthy, right? But I mean, I guess I'd be scared if my patients were throwing apples at me. That might hurt. Let's see, who can we raid? Let's raid somebody nice. Do you guys want to watch some Dead by Daylight? Let's raid Meow Buns. I haven't raided him in a while. All right, let's raid Meow Buns. All right, so Meow Buns I've known for quite a while, since I started streaming. He's one of the earlier streamers I met. He's really nice. He's a straight shooter. He does not hold back what he thinks or feels. I love that about him and his stream. And I know he's been working hard on improving the quality of his stream every week. He's really like trying to do streaming legit. So he's got a nice community. He is gay. So please, if you are homophobic, I do not want you entering into his chat and causing problems. Okay, that's an important thing to me. We're supportive of everybody on Twitch. So I wouldn't expect that that's a problem for most people here, but I do feel like I have to say it. It's sad that I feel like I have to say that, but you know, I've had people make homophobic comments in here, and so I don't want to raid his stream and someone says something rude. But yeah, so he's awesome. He's a really, really nice guy, and he's streaming DBD right now. So you're gay and you hate yourself, does that count? Hey, that kind of humor, he's going to love in there. He's going to love that kind of humor in there. So I'm going to hit the raid button here, and let's go say hi. Let's go in with a bunch of emotes, okay? He knows me. But I still like doing the emotes. Thank you everybody for joining. All right, Meow Buns, here we come. Awesome. Looks like we got 11 people. Let's freaking do this.